Today we're going to look at Bitcoin, Solana and oil. And for oil I've gotten a specific question. Is the oil market manipulated? Why is oil so low? Welcome to the channel. My name is Patrick, and as always, before we start, there are no financial advice in this video, just me sharing my own thoughts, ideas for educational purposes. We will start with Bitcoin, then Solana, and then we switch over to oil. And the reason I've gotten a question about oil is that apparently some people that are into oil are very upset about the low oil price, and this must be manipulation. I'm not claiming to be an oil expert. My primary trades and investments are in crypto, but we did buy and sell some oil here a couple of months ago. And there are some questions that I do think that those so-called oil experts out there aren't asking themselves. And I will ask them for you and in part give an answer to them also. So first out is Bitcoin. From a holistic perspective, since the top, which is what we have here, we have been following the inverse Euler's exponential. Well, it's not an exponential then, it's the inverse, the Allen function. And we have the upper and lower confidence limits, 95% limits. And we right now have been here down, touching kind of 2 times here. Now these are just probabilities. You can see here we went above it and went below it, and we don't know if we will follow it, but we have been following it all other bear markets. So far so good. Everything is just spot on as we first proposed somewhere here on day 50. The days you see down here are days since the top we're in. And previous bear markets have turned around about 1 year, somewhere in this area where we have had the bottom. And we can also compare with other bear markets. And here you see 26 in yellow. We have 22 here in orange, and in green we have 2017, well 18 it should be, 17 was the bull market. And they all have one thing in common, is that they were following the same mathematical expression based on the Allen function. But as you can see, this recent one in 2026 here is statistically significantly different from the previous 2 ones we have studied. You can see how they both put in a low, almost the same number of days from the top, even though they look a little bit different. If you try to follow the green one here, you can see how it was above its green line for a long time, all the way since day 200. Because here is the green line, and we were above, and then it fell below. Whereas the orange one here, the 2022 one, at the same time, about 210 days in, here, it went below the orange line, and then it kept being below the orange line, touched it, and then it put in the bottom. So there's no super similarities here. One went below all the time. Right now we are below, and we fell below, wish in the same area. So if history will repeat itself, it could be that we move along here and never get above this one until we put in the low and then go up. With that said, I'm very open to that the bottom might not be exactly 24 or 12 months after the top this time around. Well, if we look at the chart, we can see that Bitcoin is in this quite broad range here. It's been going sideways since February, basically. It bounced twice on this line. And if we come all the way down here again to try a third time, we can have had a little bit of different behavior recent half year or so. Historically, Bitcoin usually bounced on both lines at least 3 times, and then on the 4th, 5th or 6th, one of them broke, usually the one where we bounced the most time. But recent half year or so, Bitcoin has been breaking earlier. So usually on the 3rd or 4th bounce, it breaks, meaning we have 2. So if it goes down here a 3rd time, it could break already this time around. Because usually number 3 or 4, it breaks instead of 4, 5 or 6 that it has been for several years before that. So that is a slight shift in how it has been behaving previously. But the same is true if we go up also, that you could argue that we did bounce one time here. We even through this line, but these lines actually are zones. The way it should be drawn is like you have resistance and support zones. This is not one sharp line like this. But you could say we have two on each side. Whichever side we hit first next time, the probabilities start to go up that we will go through it. And trading wise, we loaded up here when we bounced, and now the stop losses are in setting profit, so it's just wait and see what the market wants to do. Solana has behaved differently because first Solana did in fact fall down here and got stuck in a region where it bounced a few times more or got stuck below it. Bitcoin is still in its original zone. Solana fell down, most altcoin did, but Solana is back now and above this original support and resistance level. If you compare with Ether here, you can see that Ether is still stuck down here, and most altcoins are. And Bitcoin never fell out of it. It has been in the same zone all the time, but Solana is back. And this is exactly what I wanted to see from Solana. That is not on my leverage trades, but on my ETF portfolio, where I'm doing rebalancing. I put in Solana, as you might have seen some months ago. And one reason for that is, or expectation, or hope, or whatever you want to call it, is that some periods Solana grows faster than Bitcoin, and then we rebalance, and then the opposite happens, we rebalance back. Now it's 1 out of 10, 12 different assets that I rebalance among. I will come back to that in a specific video. Because Solana had more gain than most here, all the way from this bottom here up to here. And vice versa, had a larger drop here. That is when we rebalance in the other direction. But I am cautiously optimistic as long as Bitcoin doesn't do anything dramatic, that Solana actually, if we go down here, will pass this retest and continue to be back in this original channel with support and resistance. You can also see similar behavior here as Bitcoin. It touched here 1, twice, and then third time here it did in fact break through. Because these behaviors are also contagious on some of the bigger altcoins, the behaviors that Bitcoin have. And when it broke to the downside, we had 1 touch, 2, 3, and then on the 4th. So it's these number 3 and 4. And now to the conspiracy theories. I was going to say, no, it's not really that. Oil, of course, have a temporary pump here because of the sanctions again. And I guess that is why Bitcoin became a little bit weak. It goes the opposite. If it is so that Iran once again cannot sell oil, that is the latest thing I heard a few hours ago. But if we disregard this small green candle here, apparently to some friends that are also very much into trading, but they do not trade much crypto. But one of them is into oil, and he is following some oil gurus. And we discussed oil both on the channel, and I discussed a little bit with him also. You remember when everything started here, and we bought, or I said to you guys I bought, I'm not sure what you did, but I bought here, and then I said this is a week, then I'm just in and out, and then somewhere up here I sold a couple of times and went completely out of it. Not because I'm an oil expert, so I knew that we might not go higher, but simply because here we had a 50 to 75% upside in my opinion, and I didn't see that we could go down 50% just after the war started. So even if this was the 50-50 chance, the upside was much better than downside. On top of that, I felt that the probabilities of an uptrend is much higher than low trend. So I could check both boxes, probability tilts, higher than 50%, upside, better than downside. And when those two are fulfilled, I tend to trade. Then up here, I felt, yeah, we can go up 50% more, but we could also go down 50% again where we were. So then I need the probabilities to be very strong in one direction, and in my mind they were not strong in any direction, maybe in part because I'm not an expert in oil. But apparently at least few experts out there are now devastating because I guess they sit on long position, and they had promised everyone 150 to 200k. So got this video from this guy that is now also sitting there on his long position, which he also took much later when the trend was so-called confirmed up here. And the idea is that this is not natural, this is just paper oil, that the real oil actually is $200 per barrel. And someone is manipulating the market because this cannot be true. All these oil deficits in the world, it just doesn't make sense. So they're just, pushing each other to find one theory after the other why the oil market is rigged, because it can't be so that they did a misassessment of the market. Now that seems impossible. But one question I right away thought about, but what about if the oil demand for oil is lower now than a few years back? Because about 20% of the oil supposedly were coming from the region that have been blocked. And even now when it's open, they say it doesn't matter, it should keep going up. The oil, or they claim the real oil price is 200. They know a friend who knows a friend who works on a tanker, and he thought he heard that they did pay close to $200 for it. So the paper oil is just total manipulation, and there were kind of theories how that is done. I'm not saying that it's impossible to do, but when I fill up my gas, it's not more expensive than before. And sure, we have had a low tax on gas now temporarily, which is good because that brings down inflation, and then the central bank can do what it wants to do, namely to keep the rates low. But even if I take away that lower tax we have temporarily in Sweden where I live, it still is so that the gasoline was costed much more here some months ago than it does now. So at least when I am refueling, what I see in the chart here of the paper oil seems to fit what I'm actually paying. So then it will seem strange if oil will be 200 per barrel, but the paper chart shows that is not the case. And when I refuel, that's not the case. Why will anyone sell oil that expensive, and then why will they then sell the gasoline so cheap to me and losing money basically? No, but that was not what my friend wanted to hear. But then I said, let's do an experiment here, because that is still impossible, they say, because there is a shortage and someone is manipulating everything. But then I was like, let's do an experiment then. And now I only did this lookup in Sweden because I don't know where to get reliable number globally. But often Sweden, it's a small country, it usually trend with the rest of the world. And I know where to find CO2 numbers for Sweden. We're very anal about measuring them. I've been involved in some of those projects some years back, so I know that our CO2 numbers are very accurate. And compare 2020 with 2026, and CO2 emissions from automotive have decreased 20%, which means that the fuel have decreased 20%. They are directly linear correlated, causally correlated, I should even say. So if we had a shortage of oil with 20% worldwide, and let's assume now this is true for more places than Sweden, and I think it is, well, that means that we have also decreased our usage of oil. So instead of saying that the price is manipulated down now to almost where we started and should be 200k, maybe the price was manipulated up and we're at 60, 70k before. Maybe that was a slightly higher price than it should have been because the consumption were going down. And when I think of it, there are many refineries, there are many countries that have not really been selling all their oil prior to this event. And the reason for the down, of course, is some electrical hybrid cars, but even the one still running on fossil fuel, the consumption is also going down in newer cars. They're more and more efficient. And another thing also, in Sweden and globally, we have birth rates that are much lower. And a lot of driving is done by taking kids to school and all their activities. And also, you go to the store more often. So if there's fewer families with kids, they will drive a lot less because the kids requires a lot of driving for both food and activities. Also, many families get one extra car because of the kids. But if there are fewer kids, fewer will have that extra car, which they need them for all this double work with the kids. So for me, both the electrification, the efficiency of the cars, and the low birth rate, they all make very much sense with that we in fact should have lower consumption of gasoline, which is a big one, of course, when we look at the total where oil goes. It's even so that it could be more than 20% in some other countries. So now, as I said, I'm not an expert in oil, but these are the questions I would answer before I started to talk about manipulation and all these conspiracy theories. And the numbers should be out there. It's just I did it simple and took them where I know how to find them for this small country. But if you're trading oil, you need to do your homework. You need to look these things up. What is the actual consumption? What are the trends in the consumption? Just because oil was at 60, 70, maybe that was an higher price because they were not selling all the oil. They were not digging up oil, pumping up all the oil they could. So it's not really manipulation. They just don't want to sell more because then push price down. Manipulation will be if the paper oil has a different price than the real oil, for example, or some other creative financial setups. But for me, it makes sense. The paper oil is doing what I see at the gas tank when I refuel. The price makes sense because the consumption seems to go down. So those 20% that we have been short of, maybe the oil price just went up because people were scared. Maybe there was no reason for it. Maybe we will be fine with that oil cut off if the consumption actually have gone down 20% globally, which I do not know. But I'm just telling you, if you're trading oil, you need to look those things up before you start a trade. And that is also why I only took one long and then sold, because I know I haven't done my homework for oil. But this situation seemed so not obvious, but it seemed to have all the criteria, all the boxes ticked for when I want to take a trade. And then sometimes I do trades even in assets I don't know too much about. But if you stay in that asset and keep trading it and do not only take the easy trades on them, well, then you need to do your homework. So my conclusion is I don't see any evidence for manipulation or any other conspiracy theories. So thank you all for watching. Subscribe those things and hope to see you all soon again.